So this next part is where we are going to draw some shapes. It will look like this, kind of. So I drew some circular shapes. And then we're going to kind of color, make some scraggly marks with colored pencils, the woodless ones, or Prismacolor, or both combined. And then we're going to make some scratch marks with a little sharp object, kind of like a pin. So what we've got is right here, and I'm going to make some shapes with a pencil. So maybe 3 shapes with a pencil. And then I'm going to make some shapes with a colored pencil. And they can be any shapes you want. I just find that these oval-like shapes work for me. And then I'm going to make some with this, just so that you have a variety of shapes made with different materials. And you'll be able to play around with them later. Then after that, so here are my shapes. After my shapes, I make some scraggly marks. And I'm going to do that with a number of different things. So let's try some scraggly marks with some Prismacolor pencil. The Prismacolor pencil, I'll show you what these look like as they were finished. So with Prismacolor pencil, I felt like the watercolor kind of integrated with the Prismacolor a little bit more than they did with the woodless colored pencils. I think because the woodless colored pencils have a more waxy consistency, and so it kind of repelled the watercolor, which was really cool. I can imagine that you'd be able to do some really neat stuff with that. So feel free to play around with that. And okay, so scraggly marks with that, and then I'm going to make some scraggly marks with this. I think I might make some scraggly marks with some white. Let's see how that works. So if I make some marks with the white, will that repel it even more? That would be kind of cool. So let's see what we can do. So then I'm going to paint, I'm going to paint here, and I'm going to paint around the shapes, which is always tricky, okay? But I did that here. I painted around the shapes. Oh, I forgot my little scratchy marks, which there's a fancy name for that, and I've had Sgraffiti, that's what it is. So I'm going to make some scraggly marks here, and we'll see how the watercolor seeps into those scratches. It's really cool the way it looks. I'm not big on fancy watercolor techniques. There are lots of them though. And so let's see, let's do some, I'll do a green here. So more water. Let's see, can we tilt this? There we go. Add a little bit of water. And green. I'm going to do kind of a yellowish green. But not too yellow. Okay, so I've got this nice flat brush, and I can see how, ooh, that's fun, how this works on this graffiti and how it interacts with the colored pencil and the woodless colored pencil. And I'm gonna just move it this way so that I can be quite careful. So I'm gonna go along this nice edge here and move up to my edge. I do like how that white crayon repels the watercolor. That's kind of fun. For the central area, for going around the shapes, I think I'm going to use this brush because it's about the right size. And then I'm going to get my green, and I do want to have a little bit more control with this. So let me just make sure that I'm within the camera frame. Okay, so I'm going to kind of, I've got my brush straight up and down, and I'm, you know, it's hard to get an absolutely flat shape, so I try to work on flat coverage of paint. Talking and painting at the same time. I should know how to do that by now in my teaching career, but it doesn't always happen. So it's hard to get an absolutely flat, great coverage of paint, but I try to work with that so that I'm just kind of playing around and enjoying the layers, because there are going to be layers, and hopefully they'll feel a little more flowy than mistakey. Okay, so you can see how this can feel, I mean, I think sometimes because I've got a little more experience doing this kind of stuff, it ends up looking like a little more easy than it will feel when you're doing this. But if you go over the line, don't worry. This is all about getting closer to perfection. It's very rare that you actually get exactly where you want to get. So, and I think of, whenever I'm using paint, I think of pushing the paint around instead of really drawing. Okay, so it's I want the paint to be in charge, and especially with watercolor, having a little bit of control in some areas and then less control in other areas is very, very helpful. So I'm going to see, and then kind of play around with the transition here. How do you want it to transition? With watercolor, some people enjoy using a hair dryer and kind of pushing the paint around. Other people blow it with through a straw. There are lots of different things that you can do. Lots and lots of fun stuff that you can do. And let's see. So that is what we've got. So if we look back at other examples, so this was the one where I had shapes. I had a more defined transition here. So this one I have a transition that's very kind of watery, and here I've got like a line transition, and then I colored around the shapes, and here's my Prismacolor pencils and the graffiti. And on this one's a lot more doing. I think I experimented with here maybe a little too much. colored around my shapes, and then I filled in my shapes, which we'll do once this dries, okay? And then the woodless colored pencils, graffiti, and ending. So we'll catch up in the next video.